Frank Miller floated in the observation module of the International Space Station, his eyes fixed on the endless starscape beyond Earth. The veteran astronaut had seen many breathtaking views during his 3 months in orbit, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. "Frank, you need to see this," called Diane Powell, the mission specialist. Her voice carried an unusual edge that made Frank push off the wall and glide quickly toward the communications station. "What am I looking at?" he asked, squinting at the monitor displaying wave patterns he didn't recognize. "It started about 20 minutes ago," Diane explained. "A signal, not one of ours. Not from any known satellite or space debris." She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, her face pale in the screen's blue glow. "Houston confirms it's not from Earth." Frank felt his heart skip. After decades of searching, had humanity finally received proof they weren't alone? Within hours, the news spread across Earth. Scientists worked frantically to decode the mysterious signal while governments held emergency meetings. The crew of the ISS became unlikely celebrities as they continued to monitor the strange transmission. 3 days later, they got their answer. A vessel appeared near lunar orbit, its metallic surface reflecting sunlight in ways that made it seem to shimmer. The ship was massive. Preliminary estimates suggested it was roughly the size of a small city. "My God," whispered Greg Martinez, the youngest crew member, as they crowded around the viewport. "It's really happening." The alien ship broadcast a message in several Earth languages, introducing themselves as the Zarthians, a space-faring civilization from a star system 30 light-years away. They claimed to be peaceful explorers seeking cultural exchange and scientific collaboration. Global celebrations erupted. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. World leaders hastily arranged a welcome committee, and the United Nations prepared for first contact protocols that had existed only in theory until now. Dr. Susan Grant, a leading xenolinguist and diplomat, was selected to head the Earth delegation. With 5 other specialists, she boarded a shuttle to meet the Zarthian representatives at a designated point in orbit. "This is the greatest moment in human history," she told reporters before departure. "We carry with us the hopes and curiosity of our entire species." The meeting was broadcast worldwide. Billions watched as Susan and her team entered the alien vessel through an elaborate airlock. The Zarthians appeared humanoid but taller, with iridescent blue-green skin and large, multifaceted eyes. Their leader, who called himself Ambassador Xorl, greeted the humans with gestures that seemed respectful. What the cameras didn't show was what happened after the formal greeting. The broadcast cut out suddenly, leaving viewers concerned but assuming technical difficulties. Military satellites, however, detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the Zarthian ship. Within the vessel, Susan and her team found themselves surrounded by armed Zarthians. The aliens' demeanor had changed completely. Gone was the diplomatic courtesy, replaced by cold efficiency. "Your species will serve the Empire," Ambassador Xorl announced as Susan felt something cold press against her neck. "Resistance is unadvised." Before she could respond, smaller Zarthian ships deployed from the mothership, heading toward Earth's major cities. Back at Mission Control, panic erupted as radar screens filled with incoming objects. Military commanders ordered defensive measures, but it was too late. The Zarthian technology was too advanced. A strange energy pulse swept across the planet, temporarily disabling electronics and causing widespread blackouts. When power returned hours later, reports flooded in of strange ships hovering above population centers. Frank and his crew watched in horror from the ISS as the invasion unfolded below them. The Zarthians had never been explorers. They were conquerors. "They've been watching us," Diane whispered. "Studying us. All this time." Frank nodded grimly, his fists clenched at his sides. "And now they think they own us." Humanity's greatest moment had become its darkest hour. No one realized yet that this was just the beginning of the Zarthian Empire's plans for Earth. The paralysis wave hit New York first. People stopped mid-step, frozen like statues in the streets. The same happened in Beijing, London, Moscow, and every major city across the globe. Those who had been indoors or underground were spared the initial effect, but confusion quickly turned to terror as reports spread of the alien ships positioning themselves above population centers. Major Jack Wilson had been inside a subway station when the attack began. A career military officer with 15 years of service, he emerged to find chaos. Above him, a massive Zarthian vessel hovered over Manhattan, casting an unnatural shadow over the streets. "Keep moving. Stay underground," he shouted to the panicked civilians around him. Jack knew instinctively that staying in the open was dangerous. He guided as many people as he could back into the subway tunnels. From his pocket radio, he heard fragmented reports of military responses failing worldwide. Fighter jets dropped from the sky when hit with the same energy that had paralyzed civilians. Missile systems malfunctioned before they could fire. By nightfall, the Zarthians had begun their real work. Smaller vessels descended to collect the paralyzed humans. Those who had escaped the initial wave were hunted by drone-like machines that moved with frightening speed and precision. "They're tagging people like animals," whispered Beth Adams, a nurse who had joined Jack's growing group of survivors. They watched from a darkened apartment as humans were fitted with metallic collars before being loaded onto transport ships. Within days, processing centers appeared in cleared areas of each city. Massive structures built with technology that allowed them to be assembled in hours. Humans were sorted by physical capability, age, and skill set. The neural inhibitors, the technical name for the collars, suppressed independent thought while allowing workers to perform assigned tasks. Billions became slaves in their own homes, mining resources, building more Zarthian structures, and serving their new masters without resistance. Jack established a hidden base in the old subway maintenance tunnels. His group grew slowly, mostly people who had been underground or in shielded buildings during the initial attack. They scavenged for supplies and information, learning what they could about their enemy. 3 months after the invasion, they captured a Zarthian communication device. It took weeks to decode even a portion of their language, but what they learned chilled them to the bone. "Earth isn't special," Jack told his group of 30 survivors as they huddled around a map table. "We're just the newest addition to their collection. They've done this to dozens of worlds." On the mothership, Dr. Susan Grant had been kept alive for study. The Zarthians were particularly interested in human adaptability. They viewed it as both a valuable trait and a potential problem. Susan was permitted limited movement within a research section. There, she discovered other alien species, all wearing versions of the neural inhibitors, all enslaved. Some had been servants of the Empire for centuries. A maintenance worker from a planet called Nexus secretly spoke to her one night. "Your people are not the first to fight back," the alien whispered, its translucent skin pulsing with nervous light. "But maybe you will be the first to succeed." 5 years passed. Earth was transformed into a resource planet for the Empire. Ancient forests fell to make way for refineries. Oceans were harvested for rare minerals. Humans worked until they collapsed, then were replaced by others. Jack's resistance had grown, connecting with similar groups across continents through repurposed Zarthian technology. They had some success in small raids, freeing handfuls of people by temporarily disabling inhibitors. But they needed something more. In his makeshift command center, Jack studied a stolen Zarthian tablet. "There has to be a weakness," he muttered. "Every empire in history has fallen eventually." Beth placed a hand on his shoulder. "And this one will too," she said quietly. "We just need to find the right chains to break first." Above them, unseen in the night sky, Dr. Grant was working on exactly that. Lisa Carter had been an electrical engineer before the invasion. Now, 5 years into Earth's enslavement, she worked in the shadows of an abandoned factory outside Chicago. The building's thick concrete walls and underground levels had somehow escaped Zarthian detection. It was here that she made her breakthrough. "I think I've got it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper despite the privacy of their hideout. Years of hiding had made quiet voices a habit among the resistance. She held up what looked like a modified television remote. The device was crude, a patchwork of salvaged electronics and repurposed Zarthian components. Jack Wilson, who had traveled from the East Coast to see her work, looked skeptical. "This little thing can disable the inhibitors?" he asked. Lisa nodded. "The neural inhibitors operate on a specific frequency. This disrupts it long enough to break the connection." She pointed to a row of diagrams pinned to the wall. "It won't work at long range yet, but if we can get close enough to the processing centers." Jack understood immediately. We could free people by the hundreds. News of Lisa's invention spread through the Resistance's hidden communication network, a system of modified ham radios and repurposed Zarthian technology. Groups that had once felt isolated now coordinated their efforts. Hope, a feeling almost forgotten, began to flicker among the free humans. In California, Alan Brooks trained civilians in combat and stealth. The former Navy SEAL had escaped capture by hiding in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Now he ran a training camp in an abandoned gold mine. "Move quietly. Stay low," he instructed a group of 20 men and women. "The drones detect movement patterns that look human. If you move differently, like an animal would, you have a better chance." His trainees practiced crawling through underbrush, using hand signals, and handling weapons made from scavenged materials. They were preparing for something bigger than the occasional raid they'd managed so far. Meanwhile, in a Zarthian research facility, an unexpected ally emerged. Krell, a junior scientist in the Zarthian hierarchy, had begun to question the Empire's methods. Unlike most of his kind, Krell had spent time studying human history and culture beyond what was needed to control them. "Your species values freedom above survival," he told Dr. Susan Grant during one of their research sessions. "This fascinates me. Most species surrender completely when faced with our technology." Susan seized the opportunity. "Not all Zarthians agree with the Empire's expansion, do they?" Krell's multifaceted eyes shifted nervously. "There are philosophical differences among my people. Some believe forced servitude is inefficient compared to cooperation." It took months of careful conversations, but Susan eventually gained Krell's trust. The Zarthian began sharing crucial information about the Empire's systems, including a critical weakness. "All Zarthian technology shares the same fundamental flaw," Krell explained, showing Susan diagrams on his datapad. "Our systems are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic pulses. Your human technology was too primitive to discover this, until now." Susan needed to get this information to the Resistance. Through Krell's help, she managed to send a coded message via the Zarthian communication network, disguised as system maintenance data. Jack Wilson received the message at his East Coast base. When decoded, it revealed not only the Zarthian weakness, but also the location of a processing center with minimal security, perfect for their first major operation. 3 resistance groups coordinated the raid, using Lisa's inhibitor disciplers and Alan's tactical training. On a moonless night, they approached the New Jersey processing center where 500 humans were held. The guard drones fell first, short-circuited by devices based on Krell's information. Then came the moment of truth as Lisa activated her discipler on the first human worker they encountered, a middle-aged man with empty eyes. The inhibitor collar sparked, then fell open. The man blinked, confusion giving way to awareness. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. Jack stepped forward. "We're the Resistance, and you're free now." For the first time since the invasion, the Zarthians faced an organized human response. The chains had begun to break. The success of the New Jersey raid spread like wildfire through the Resistance network. 500 freed humans meant 500 new fighters, each with knowledge of Zarthian protocols and facilities. Jack Wilson knew they needed to act quickly before the Zarthians could adapt their security. "We have a window of opportunity," he told the Resistance leaders gathered in an underground bunker in the Appalachian Mountains. The location had once been a government continuity site, forgotten and abandoned until the Resistance found it. Maps and diagrams covered the walls, showing Zarthian facilities across North America. Lisa Carter stood beside a table of disassembled alien technology. "We've been taking their weapons apart, learning how they work," she explained, "and we can build our own versions now." She demonstrated a rifle-like weapon that fired pulses of energy rather than bullets. The design was crude compared to Zarthian elegance, but it worked. The Resistance had manufactured 50 such weapons using materials scavenged from abandoned human factories and Zarthian outposts. While they prepared, Dr. Susan Grant made her move on the mothership. With Krell's help, she accessed a maintenance shaft that led to a communication array. The Zarthian scientist created a distraction while Susan transmitted detailed information about the Empire's command structure to Earth. The North American Command Center controls all operations on the continent, she revealed in her message. It's located under what used to be Denver. Destroy it, and their regional network collapses. Her message also contained the timing of a scheduled system update, a brief period when Zarthian security would be at its most vulnerable. The Resistance would have exactly 23 minutes to strike when all systems temporarily went offline for recalibration. Jack coordinated with Resistance cells across the continent. The plan was ambitious. Simultaneous attacks on 12 major Zarthian facilities, with the main assault targeting Denver. Alan Brooks would lead a team to infiltrate the command center, while Lisa Carter deployed a massive electromagnetic pulse device at a nearby power distribution node. If Susan's information was correct, the pulse would temporarily disable Zarthian systems worldwide. The day arrived. Resistance fighters moved into position, hiding in drainage systems, abandoned buildings, and the wilderness surrounding Zarthian facilities. They carried their makeshift weapons and Lisa's improved inhibitor disciplers, now capable of freeing humans, at a range of 50 feet. At exactly 3:42 p.m., the Zarthian network began its update sequence. Security drones hovered in place, their lights dimming as their systems recalibrated. The inhibitor collars on enslaved humans flickered momentarily. "Now," Jack ordered through the communication network. Alan's team moved first, emerging from a maintenance tunnel beneath the Denver facility. They encountered minimal resistance as they pushed toward the central control room. The few Zarthian guards were quickly overwhelmed by the humans' sudden attack. Meanwhile, Lisa and her engineers reached the power distribution node. They positioned their EMP device, a massive contraption built from salvaged Zarthian power cells and modified human electronics. "Everyone clear," Lisa shouted, activating the countdown. Her team retreated to a safe distance as the device charged. Inside the command center, Alan's team secured the main control room just as the Zarthian systems began coming back online. They plugged in a data drive containing a virus designed by Resistance hackers based on information from Krell and Susan. "Upload complete," reported one of Alan's team members. "System accepting the package." Outside, Lisa's EMP device detonated with a thunderous crack. A wave of energy expanded outward, engulfing the facility and spreading across the region. The lights in the command center flickered and died. Across North America, Zarthian technology failed. Neural inhibitors opened, releasing tens of thousands of humans from mental slavery in an instant. Confused but suddenly free, many immediately turned on their surprised overseers. Jack watched from a hilltop as Denver erupted in chaos. Zarthian ships lost power and drifted in the air before emergency systems engaged. Neural inhibitors lay on the ground like discarded jewelry as humans came back to themselves. His radio crackled with reports from other sites, similar scenes playing out from coast to coast. In orbit, Susan felt the mothership shudder as systems flickered. "It's working," she whispered to Krell. "They're fighting back." The counterattack had begun. For the first time since the invasion, humanity had scored a decisive victory against their oppressors. The Zarthian warship hung in the air above the Nevada desert, its once gleaming hull now scared from battle. 3 weeks had passed since the coordinated attacks, and the Resistance had captured several alien vessels. This one, a mid-sized cruiser with interstellar capabilities, was their greatest prize. Alan Brooks ran his hand along the ship's control panel, studying the strange symbols and pulsing lights. "Can you make sense of this?" he asked the man beside him. Krell, the defected Zarthian scientist, adjusted the translator device at his throat. "This controls propulsion. These regulate life support." His long blue-green fingers moved deftly across the panels. "I can teach your people to pilot it, but it will take time." Time was something they had precious little of. The Zarthian Empire had already dispatched reinforcements from nearby star systems. Earth had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. Jack Wilson entered the ship's bridge, followed by Dr. Susan Grant, who had been rescued during the chaos following the EMP attack. Her years aboard the mothership had changed her. She was thinner, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes burned with determination. "Krell has given us the coordinates to the Empire's central fleet," she announced. "It's stationed near their homeworld, about 20 light-years from here." Jack frowned. "Even with their ships, we can't take on their entire fleet." "We don't need to," Susan replied. "Not yet. First, we need allies." She unfolded a star chart on the central table. Points of light marked dozens of worlds across several spiral arms of the galaxy. These are all planets currently under Zarthian control. Some have been enslaved for centuries. Others, like Earth, are recent conquests. Her finger traced a path between several stars. "If we can reach these worlds and disable their inhibitor networks like we did here." The implications were clear. Earth wasn't fighting alone. They could potentially free billions of beings across the Empire. For 2 months, they prepared. A crew of 30 was selected for the mission, mostly military personnel with technical backgrounds, plus Lisa Carter, whose understanding of Zarthian technology had become invaluable. Alan Brooks would command the mission, with Krell serving as navigator and advisor. The day of launch, hundreds gathered at the secret base to witness humanity's first intentional journey to the stars. The captured warship, renamed Freedom, powered up with a deep hum that vibrated through the desert floor. "Remember," Jack told Alan during their final briefing, "your mission is reconnaissance and contact. Find allies, share the inhibitor disruption technology, and return with whatever intelligence you can gather." Alan nodded grimly. "We'll be back. With friends." The Freedom lifted off silently, its anti-gravity drive leaving no exhaust trail as it accelerated upward. Within minutes, it was beyond Earth's atmosphere. Krell activated the faster-than-light drive, and the ship vanished into the depths of space. The journey to the first target world took 8 days. The planet, called Terok by its native species and Resource World 17 by the Zarthians, was a humid jungle world rich in rare minerals. As they approached, they detected the familiar signatures of Zarthian processing centers. "There's a resistance here too," Lisa said, examining sensor readings, small groups hiding in the denser jungle regions. Making contact proved difficult. The natives, tall, four-armed beings with bark-like skin, had been enslaved for over a century. Trust did not come easily. It took several tense encounters before Alan's team convinced a resistance leader named Vash to listen. "Your inhibitor technology works on our people too," Lisa demonstrated, freeing several captured Terokans with her device. "We can teach you to build these." Vash's compound eyes widened. "How many worlds have you freed?" "Just our own, so far," Alan replied honestly. "But we're just beginning." As they prepared to depart for the next world, Susan discovered something unexpected in the Zarthian database, records of a coalition that had attempted to resist the Empire centuries ago. It had failed, but the knowledge of that attempt had been preserved in secret by several species. They'd been waiting, she realized. All this time, they'd been waiting for someone to try again. The Freedom continued its journey, stopping at world after world, spreading the technology and knowledge that could break the neural inhibitors. On each planet, they found beings eager to fight for their freedom, once they understood it was possible. By the time they reached the seventh world, they no longer arrived as strangers. Word had spread through hidden channels across the Empire. They were expected. They were welcomed. A rebellion that began on Earth was becoming a galactic revolution. The Freedom returned to Earth orbit 3 months after its departure. The ship no longer traveled alone. A fleet of 12 vessels, each from a different world, each piloted by beings who had thrown off their neural inhibitors, accompanied it. They represented the first official delegation of the Freedom Coalition. Jack Wilson watched from mission control as the ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their designs as varied as the species that built them. Some were sleek and metallic like Zarthian craft, while others appeared organic, grown rather than constructed. "They really came," he murmured, his usually stern expression softening with wonder. The landing site had been prepared in the Australian outback, far from any remaining Zarthian strongholds. A circular arrangement of landing pads surrounded a hastily constructed meeting hall. Human resistance leaders from across the globe had gathered for this historic moment. Alan Brooks was the first to exit the Freedom, followed by Lisa Carter, and then a procession of beings that seemed pulled from the pages of science fiction. The Tarokians with their tree-like bodies and multiple limbs, the crystalline Phosians who glittered in the sunlight, the massive, fur-covered Ursan delegates who stood nearly 10 feet tall. 9 other species followed, each more remarkable than the last. Frank Miller stepped forward as Earth's designated ambassador. The astronaut who had witnessed the invasion from orbit had survived by maintaining the ISS as long as possible before returning to a changed Earth. His unique perspective made him the perfect choice to represent humanity. "Welcome to Earth," Frank said, making the universal greeting gesture that Alan had taught him. Right hand open, left hand over heart. "We are honored to host the first gathering of the Freedom Coalition." Inside the meeting hall, representatives arranged themselves around a circular table. Earth's delegation sat beside the Tarokians, with other species filling the remaining seats. Translators, both human and alien, worked to ensure all could understand one another. Vash, the Tarokian leader, spoke first. "For generations, my people believed we were alone in our suffering. The Zarthians told us other worlds accepted their rule willingly." His bark-like skin rustled as he gestured toward the assembled delegates. "Now we know the truth. None of us chose enslavement. All of us wish for freedom." The next speaker was a Phosian named Lyra, her crystalline body changing colors as she spoke. "Alone, none of our species could challenge the Empire. Together, we have already liberated 17 worlds in the past 3 months." Frank looked surprised. 17. Our reports only mention 12. "The movement spreads faster than ships can travel," explained Krell, who had become an important advisor to the Coalition. "Word passes through hidden channels. On some worlds, the enslaved rose up on their own once they learned it was possible." Lisa Carter presented her latest breakthrough to the Coalition, a universal inhibitor discipliner that worked on all known neural control devices throughout the Empire. Each species' biology is different, but the Zarthians used the same basic technology on all of us. This device creates a cascading failure in the entire inhibitor network. The Coalition members examined the device with wonder. Some wept in their own ways. Phosians shimmered with intense color. Ursans hummed deep tones. Humans shed tears. The simple metal box represented freedom for billions still enslaved. "We need to coordinate our next moves," Jack said, directing attention to a holographic map of the galaxy that Krell activated above the table. Red dots marked Zarthian strongholds, while green showed liberated worlds. "The Empire is rallying its forces. They've abandoned some outer worlds to consolidate power closer to their homeworld." The Coalition spent 3 days planning, debating, and forging agreements. They established communication protocols, resource-sharing systems, and military coordination structures. Former enemies under Zarthian control discovered shared cultural values and complementary abilities. On the final day, intelligence arrived from a Phosian scout ship. The Zarthian Emperor had recalled his personal guard from across the Empire, creating an opportunity no one had anticipated. The palace defenses are weakened, Krell explained, highlighting a sector on the galactic map. And I know every entrance, every security measure. The coalition members exchanged glances. What had begun as a rebellion was about to become something more, a revolution that could reshape the galaxy. Frank Miller stood, his voice carrying unexpected authority. I propose we form a strike team, the best from each world, to infiltrate the Imperial Palace. One by one, the representatives voiced their agreement. The final phase of their fight for freedom was about to begin. The Imperial Palace of the Zarthian Empire rose like a twisted mountain from the surface of the homeworld. Its spires pierced the amber sky, glinting with the same metallic sheen as the ships that had brought terror to Earth and countless other worlds. Jack Wilson surveyed the structure through enhanced binoculars from his position on a nearby ridge. After years of fighting on Earth, he now found himself light years from home, leading the ground assault team of the Freedom Coalition's most daring mission. The main defense grid is down, reported Vash, the Tarokian resistance leader who crouched beside him. Our hackers got through. Jack nodded and activated his communication device. All teams, move in. Remember the plan. No heroics, no revenge killings. We're here to end the Empire, not become it. 300 fighters from 12 different species began their advance on the palace. The Coalition had chosen their best for this mission, those with specialized skills and cool heads. The Phosians used their crystalline bodies to reflect light, creating diversions. The massive Ursins carried heavy weapons that could breach Zarthian barriers. Humans, with their adaptability, served as team coordinators. Alan Brooks led the second wave, guiding a team through underground tunnels that Krell had identified. Security drones ahead, he whispered as red lights appeared in the darkness. The team deployed Lisa Carter's latest invention, a pulse emitter that scrambled Zarthian electronics without damaging them. Above ground, Dr. Susan Grant approached the palace through a different route. Her years as a captive had given her unique knowledge of Zarthian culture and protocol. She wore the robes of a high-ranking administrator, her appearance altered by Phosian light-bending technology to resemble a Zarthian official. The Emperor is in the central chamber, she reported through her concealed communicator. But there's something else. I'm seeing Zarthian civilians evacuating. Many look frightened, not hostile. This matched intelligence they had gathered during their campaign. Not all Zarthians supported the Empire's expansion. Some had advocated for peaceful cooperation with other species, but had been silenced by the Emperor's regime. Jack's team reached the first courtyard, encountering minimal resistance. Something's wrong, he muttered. This is too easy. His suspicion was confirmed when they reached the central plaza before the palace entrance. A group of Zarthians waited there, not soldiers, but civilians dressed in simple garments. One stepped forward, her skin a paler blue than most of her kind. I am Tala, leader of the Zarthian Reform Movement, she announced through a translator. We have controlled the palace security systems for the past 3 hours. The Imperial Guard has been contained. Jack kept his weapon ready, suspicious of a trap. Why would you help us? Because the Emperor's policies have corrupted our society as well as harmed yours, Tala replied. Many of us have opposed the neural inhibitor program and planetary exploitation for generations. We were imprisoned or silenced, until now. The coalition forces advanced cautiously, with Tala's group guiding them through the palace. As they reached the Imperial throne room, they found the massive doors already open. Inside, the Emperor sat alone on a crystalline throne, his elaborate armor gleaming under the light of 3 artificial suns suspended from the ceiling. He appeared older than most Zarthians, his skin faded to a pale turquoise. I knew this day would come, he said as Jack and Alan approached, weapons raised. Every empire falls eventually. Then you surrender? Jack asked, not lowering his rifle. The Emperor made a gesture that might have been a laugh. I acknowledge reality. My guards have abandoned me. My fleet commanders have stopped responding to orders. Half my worlds are in open rebellion. Susan Grant stepped forward. You will stand trial for crimes against sentient beings across 1,000 worlds. While the Emperor was secured, Lisa Carter implemented the final phase of their plan. From the palace's central communication array, she broadcast the deactivation signal for all neural inhibitors still functioning across the Empire. One by one, the lights on her monitor changed from red to green as planetary control systems shut down. It's done, she announced, her voice thick with emotion. They're all free. 3 weeks later, representatives from over 40 formerly enslaved species gathered in the Imperial Palace, now renamed the Galactic Council Center. The massive throne room had been redesigned, with the Emperor's seat replaced by a circular table similar to the one used at the first coalition meeting on Earth.